Live from the back of your classroom, this is the Back of the Class podcast. Here are your hosts, the Fat Club Boys.
Straight skills.
Yeah, it's Johnny. I go the whole nine and don't hold back. Only phonies flex with a Kodak. When it's old time, I get more back. So I yellow bone, put it, give me Bodak. Yeah, she like all of my rhymes, she let me know. She want all of my time and she let me know. But I don't wanna lie, so I let them know. Baby girl, I won't fly.
Here we go. Welcome to episode number something of the Back of the Class podcast. I'm joined by the Black Bear.
What up, what up, what up? We back, baby.
We got a special guest today. So we got an interview. We got to get to on the other side. The nights are getting cold. Everyone's sick. But we're here.
We're here again. Let's go.
We just had Mother's Day, so I hope everyone was good to their mums and at least made breakfast. We're going to get to this interview, so get to it on the other side. Turn it up.
Hardball going in for all 9 innings, yeah. Hey, said we going all 9 innings, yeah. I like it, you love it, yeah. So we gon' go the whole 9, yeah. Yeah. So we gon' go the whole 9.
We are live for episode number something. But before we start, we'll invite Black Bear back to the podcast.
Hello, I'm back.
And our special guest, she is a super mum, an entrepreneur, and even someone we consider as a, what you would call a mentor in this new space as we go through it all. She is the founder of the original Pacific Runway.
Talk to me.
She's very active in the women's space and empowerment, and is also the founder of Women with Vision. She is Jannike Seiuli.
Hi guys, how are you?
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for the intro.
It's pretty good, eh? I was like, I better not send that to her before she...
made it sound so proper.
Yeah, it's not like I wasn't practicing at work today. No, thanks for coming on, Jannike. Like, obviously, it's real close to home to have you on because we are related, like we're in-laws.
Yep.
And her husband is Mona, who refuses to show his face on camera. But thanks for coming on, and we'll just start, like, tell us about yourself, your upbringing, and...
Yep, cool, yep. So, yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm Jannike Seiuli. My maiden name is Fruin. I'm Samoan Māori, and obviously live here in Campbelltown, grew up in Campbelltown, born in Whangarei, New Zealand, but I've lived here in Australia for many years. I think we've been here since I was 6 or 7, so we've been here for a while. Yeah, but we've always lived, like when we moved here to Australia, we lived, to Sydney, we lived in Fairfield with family, and then we made our way out to Campbelltown, and we've been here ever since. So, yeah, so it's pretty cool. Like, we're here now where we grew up. Now I have my own children who are also, like, born in the area and go to school here. So,
So you're local?
Yes, I'm local.
From the area.
From the area.
Tell us about your first, like, your events, like how you got into event planning and management.
Yeah. So, obviously, from a young age, I always enjoyed performing arts. Has always been something that I'm passionate about. So, yeah, from a very young age, a part of the kapahaka groups here, and then doing performances like within primary school, high school, and all that stuff. But really stepping into the event space didn't happen for me till after I finished high school. So once I had my son, I had hurt my back, and it's been an ongoing journey with that. So dancing stopped for me, which was something that, you know, at the time. Yes. Yeah. So I really love dance. And then because I couldn't do it as much as I would have liked to, I started to just organize dance shows, things like that, so that I was still amongst the space, because it was still something that I was passionate about. So, and so from the age of 19, then I started running like local dance shows. And then it just turned into other things around the event space, and then I've just loved doing it ever since. So I've always been an organized person, and like my friends that I'm still friends with today from high school would always, would be able to vouch for that even throughout high school, I was always that person to organize performances and, multicultural days and things like that. So it's always been there, but I just didn't know, I didn't tap into it until I was injured, and then it was like I didn't have a choice. Like if I wanted to still be a part of the performing arts space, this was another way I could do that.
It's interesting. Like you said, if you couldn't dance as much, but you still wanted to stay in the space, your next step was, it's good that you recognize that your next space was to maybe put the events on.
Yeah, because I think at the time I was shattered, because I was like I said, like dance was something that I was very passionate about. So not being able to do it as much, like it sucked for me. So, but I was very passionate about it, and I still loved how dance brought a community together. So being able to organize these events, I was still able to be a part of it, but just not be on stage, which was fine with me, And I think also the love for performing arts, we actually, like my sister, my brothers, my mum, we all got to participate in the opening ceremony of the Olympics here in Sydney. So, and I was only 13, I think, at the time. But I think that experience was like, man, this is like, I loved like being amongst that space. And obviously performing in front of that crowd was like crazy, it was packed, and you can still find it on YouTube now and see it, and it still brings that same feeling back to me of how I felt about performing arts. So so I'm glad that I'm still in amongst the space, but just now on the organizing side of it. So
Talking about that, still being in that space, tell us about Pacific Runway and what made you want to pursue that, I guess.
Yeah. So when we first started, obviously we started here in Campbelltown. I actually put it together for Youth Week. So April every year they have the Youth Week. So I put it together for local designers, or at that time it was designers, makeup artists, artists, dancers, barbers. It was kind of everyone, really. I was just like, let's just do this event for Youth Week, and I just thought it was going to be a one-off thing. So we did that in 2012, and then someone that works at Casula Powerhouse was there, and then reached out to ask if we'd consider continuing on and doing it another couple of years in Casula. So that's like, it was pretty much just we were going to do a one-off thing. And then then it went to 11 years. So
11 years.
Yeah. So it's crazy. Like now when I think about it, I actually don't think about it as often unless people ask me about when it started. And we would have people that would come to what it is now, and they would tell me like, man, when we came to your show, like the very first one, like their daughter was in the pram. Like now their daughter's like, in high school and things like that. So I guess I didn't realize how much the community followed the journey of the runway as well, which was cool, because as much as it grew and it was in the bright lights of everything, and became recognized internationally, the part for me was that it was still a homegrown show for me, and just shedding light on everyone's talent, really.
Like, was there like when you first started, like the Pacific designers, like was there a lot of them back then compared to now? Because obviously you've been running 11 years. Like, have you seen it grow over this time, like from, I guess, then till now?
Yeah. There wasn't many back then. So even then it was like the OG designers, like they had been doing it for a while, but there wasn't really much happening for them. So they were, probably older designers that had been doing it for a while, but they didn't have a platform to actually showcase on. So, but I mean, from then to now, like if you think about now, there's shows that happen everywhere now. Like there's in New Zealand, in Samoa, in America. This year they've got one in Utah, in Fiji, PNG. So like fashion shows happen everywhere now.
Yeah.
But back then there wasn't many, or there wasn't one here anyways.
Yeah.
So, I think that really what we did really showed or allowed young Pacific people to believe like, oh man, we can step into that space too. So, which is another achievement for me. Like I love seeing those designers that came through as students and now showcasing over in France and things like that. Like it's really cool. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Eh?
That's mad. You know what? That just shows. That's like hats off to you guys. You know, creating a space where these young Polynesian, Māori, Pacific Islanders can showcase their stuff. You know, it's kind of like you know what I mean. Like, oh, I want to do this, but now there's a space. I got a reason to do it. You know what I mean? And like, right. And that's, I guess it's just hat off to you guys, man. What you guys done, you. Awesome.
Yeah.
Especially, like because fashion has come a long way. And what you say 11 years, because how many do you reckon are still around or from your first show to now?
Yeah, there's a few of them are still going, but there's like obviously that has just grown so much because so many young people, like you said, they see that we were able to do something and they want to be a part of the show. So then they then go and study, and even then, we've always welcomed. It's emerging and established designers. It's not just established designers.
Yeah.
And most of them we take on board are emerging because I guess because they see it and think, oh, you know, we've got to be doing this for years to be in a show like that, you know. And so giving them the opportunity. And they're always so grateful, like it's just a crazy experience for them to even take part. Like even from when we started, there's some that were just working back of house, helping the auntie or uncle, you know, the designer at the time, and now they're doing all their own like fashion lines and stuff. So it's really cool just to see the growth and what the show has inspired for people and you know, our Pacific people. So yeah,
bro, that's crazy, eh?
Right.
It's kind of like remember when they like brought out that like the way I see it, the way I see what you've done. And where people are now is kind of like, remember when Bring It On first came out?
Yeah.
And then like, you know, they took dance into schools and they made it kind of a thing. And then like, look what's happened now. There's people that are like choreographers for like major like artists and stuff now, but like it all started somewhere.
Yeah.
And I see that that's what you guys done. You know, you created a space. Now people can take what they love to do and, you know, see where it goes, where it flourishes too, bro. It's amazing.
Yeah. I think that's the, like, people always ask me what's the most, like, rewarding thing for you, you know, you do all this. And my thing is, well, on show day, it's always that seeing people come in to the venue and they just, you see how proud they are to be, like, Māori Pacific, you know, because then they see an event that's, like, a stellar event run by our own people, whereas and everyone that's involved is all brown skin, you know, like that's something that that I feel very proud of, and just to see the reaction on people's faces, like, man, this is so cool, like, you know, this is all run by our own people.
So you should, man, you should feel proud, eh? Like crazy.
Yeah, it's cool.
So, in saying that, 11 years, what's next? Because obviously, we had the one. You had the one last year with the gala. What can we expect next?
Yeah. So obviously, like if you follow our socials, last year was like I put out the announcement that it was our last year, which shocked a lot of people. I think because it was just getting bigger and bigger. Like people didn't want it to stop, kind of thing. But in coming to that decision for me to stop, it was. I had to think about myself, where I'm at, my family, things like that. And it was hard for me to make that decision, but I had been thinking about it for a while. And it was like I loved what we were doing, But obviously my family was growing. When I started, I only had one son, you know, now I've got a full tribe. And so it was like trying to prepare all this. Trying to prepare all this was like, it was hard work, man. Like, you know, and people, I think that was the thing that people just expected me to always like, oh, it'll always be on. It'll always be on. And which I would always do. But I didn't realize like it was taking a toll on me as the years went on, because obviously then I have my family and things like that. So, so I made that announcement, and, you know, obviously hoping in the future when my babies are older that I can bring it back. But in the meantime, obviously I don't want to leave the space empty. So last year we introduced the Pack Gala. So it was a gala event where people can then dress up, and where it's still fashion inspired, like people can still get dressed up in their designs and wear different designers and stuff like that. So, and that was held at the grounds. So the grounds have a new ballroom space and it just opened. So even that was really cool, because then they, like, our people felt like, oh man, like we've never been in a space like this, you know.
It was such a beautiful space too.
Yeah, it was so
It looked nice,
Yeah.
when I was watching from social media.
Yeah, it was so like even that, like just seeing our people then turning up and like, you know, they appreciated feeling that way, you know. That we were taking the time to like put on this another event, because we had the runway the night before and then the gala the following night. Don't ask me why I did that, because then I was stressing out the whole 2 days. But but it was like a cool weekend for people. Like it was the way I wanted to finish off. I think I'm just glad that I got to finish off strong, because and that it wasn't a show that just went downhill, you know. Everyone was just like, oh, after. And that was a thing for me too, that I wanted to come in, and every year the space looked different. I added different things. And even my crew would be like, oh, like, what are we going to do this year? Like, they knew I was always planning something. And why I wanted to do that, because I guess for me, if I'm going to an event, I always like, what do I want to see? You know, all that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I never wanted someone to come in and just feel like, oh, it feels like it's the same, like, you know, the show never changes, but we always like wanted to go one up every year. So yeah, but we've just got for the future, obviously keeping the Pack Gala, and I'm wanting to work with designers so that they're still able to, especially emerging designers, and be able to do some programs with them, hopefully from next year. So there's a bit more to it, but I don't want to give any more info.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
No, that's so mad. We'll quickly take a break.
Yep.
And then we'll come back.
Yep.
Cool, sir. Tune in, there's more.
Class podcast. Back after this.
West at the tape.
And we're back. So, picking up where we left off, with the Pacific Runway, was there any like challenges, or like what was the, you know, hardest thing about running that show?
I think as the show grew, I then had to learn to get comfortable in being in a space that wasn't all brown people. Like I had to get used to being the only brown person in the room, because then obviously we started here, it was local, we just booked the West Leagues Club, like, you know, it wasn't like people were then funding us, because obviously from Casula Powerhouse then we moved on to Carriageworks. So Carriageworks is the home of Australian Fashion Week, so that's actually happening this week, I think it starts. And even with that, we were the only other fashion show to be endorsed by Carriageworks, and so that was like a lot of pressure for me as well. Just thinking like, oh man, we're in the same space.
They're so amazing though. Congrats.
Yeah, it was cool. Like once I got past that fear, then it was like, yeah, man, we deserve to be here, you know. But that first year that we were there, it was like when we went there, it was like, flip, this is like a legit space. Like, and even then it was like so exciting for me because then my mind is running on, oh, flip, we can use this, we can use that, like, you know, this space for this. So when we first started, we were in it was still a big room. But then as the years went on, that room became our back of house room. Like that's how many people got involved with the show. So, you know, we'd have up to about 70 models and then 20 plus designers. And then we've got all the volunteers that help back of house hair and makeup. So, yeah, I think a challenge when it started to be seen by other people or by Australia, then it was like I had to get used to being the only brown person in the room when it came to like having meetings and things like that. So, it was hard for me, you know, because when you're running the show in your area, it's like you've got the love and support of your community, like you're not answering to anyone else, you know. Yeah. So that was a challenge for me in the beginning. And, I just really had to step into my shoes and like, you know, believe that we're meant to be there, you know. Obviously another challenge that happened for us was, you know, being teamed up with another group and then separating. So that was like a massive challenge for me in 2016. So doing that or going through that, it was, you know, emotionally, mentally, physically draining. But I mean, from every challenge, there's still a lesson to be learned. So I'm like proud of myself, and like obviously without the support of my family, my husband, like we were able to still push on, like because there were times where I didn't want to, you know. I was just like, oh, this show's not worth it, you know. I just wasn't feeling like I can put on a good show, like giving my all when I was feeling that way. So but I mean, going through that experience, then like it pushed me to work harder, you know. And even then throughout, there were times where people would say that, you know, you'll never be able to run a show, or the show will never be successful if you don't have Palangi as a part of it. Like, you know, if it's just all Pacific. And, you know, coming from a person that's the same color as me, so it didn't make sense. Like, and then it was like that part was like, man, it just pushed me to like, no, we can, like, you know, it's going to happen. So after that, I then brought in everyone that was on the hair and makeup team was all Māori Pacific. It was the leads were Māori Pacific. Everyone that was coming on to do like photography, like the media team, all Pacific. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was like and then when we did it, it was like, it wasn't hard because it was like all our natural talents. You know what I mean? Like it just, once it all came in, and then from then on, like we had media coming, like we even had Vogue Australia come, and they did like a whole segment on us. And what I realized that as much as like our own people were coming to the show, there was heaps of other nationalities that were coming to watch, because for them it's like a full cultural experience, you know. For us, it's like, yeah, we see tapa all the time, but for them, they're like, oh, what's that, you know? Yeah. So, so when we had the whole write-up from Vogue Australia, it was like so cool, man, because it was a bit touch and go, because I was like, oh, man, I don't know what they're going to say, you know? And these guys do stories with Australian Fashion Week all the time, you know? So, but yeah, it was a really good write-up about what they experienced, how they felt, what they saw. A big thing for us was, a lot of people would say, or the people that do write-ups would always say, like, that they use real people, like real models, real sizes, you know, because if you go to Australian Fashion Week, it's like obviously all the tall, skinny, you know, it's the same thing. Yeah. They love that.
Like my build.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like me and Will.
So as they would come and see the show, they'd see like these are all real sizes. People feel like, oh, I can buy these clothes because I can fit these clothes, you know, all that type of thing. So, I mean, so with anything, you know, there are challenges, but it definitely pushed me to keep going and just ignited the fire, really. And and then we were just off after that. It was really cool. Yeah.
I was about to ask if it was like there was a point where it could have been make or break,
Yes.
and you took it
Yeah.
another step further.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Yeah.
kudos to you.
Thank you.
Like, that obviously I can tell it must have been stressful, and to hear that kind of stuff,
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the thing. It's like, well, that's the other thing. A lot of the times it's coming from our own people. That's the part that I can't deal with, It's just like, oh, man, like, let's help each other. And then it's like you do. And then the others are just,
Yeah,
throwing
I
shade.
always wonder about this, say, if it's like just Islanders or just people in general, like, they cheer you on until you do better than them.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's, then all of a sudden it becomes a problem.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Willing to help you out there, and then as soon as they see you like on their level, it's like, oh, let me cut this nigga down.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah. And it's really sad, like, because obviously we don't have, we have a very small team. And so with the socials, like, Mona and I will be looking after that. And even then, it's like, because social media is it's good and bad.
Yeah.
But, just like comments and messages and things like that come from your own people, like, it'll be like, oh, there's not enough brown models or blah, blah, blah. And then you change it and then it's like, oh, but that one doesn't look brown enough, like, because they're half caste or whatever. Like,
It's one of those things that, like, you can't
please everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
Eh?
Yeah.
We got our first bad comment and on one of our videos, and I was like, oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And then that's the thing. Obviously, because, you guys are starting out, that's the thing that you'll have to deal with. But it's, when I stopped caring, like, literally, it was just, I just didn't bother. Because, when you first start, you're like, oh, okay, people are liking or commenting what, you want to make sure you're doing it right, Well, was my experience. And then when all that stuff started happening, it started to consume me, because then I felt like, oh, man, like, now we've got to change this because people want to see this and da-da-da. But then I realized, like, that's just their own personal opinion,
Yeah.
And people love what we do. I'm not going to change things just because somebody's just written one comment or sent me one message or whatever,
Yeah.
You just got to learn. Once I got past that, it was like, oh, and I just didn't bother checking, like, comments and stuff, like, because otherwise if I see it, then it'll start to, like, bother me.
Yeah, consume
Yeah,
you away.
yeah. So, yeah,
Like-
I mean, you get past that stage.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So we're sort of like talking about it already, but like looking back now that you've had X amount of years to digest it all. If you're just talk to your younger self who was just starting out, might be someone that might watch this,
Yeah.
what would be your best advice to them? Or,
Man, it probably sounds cliche, but just to believe in yourself. Because I was like, as it got, like, went from the first show, then moved to Casula Powerhouse, and then it started, and then moved to Carriage Works. It was kind of like, oh, I wasn't comfortable being the only brown person in the room, Or, like, I knew I was talented. I knew I could do this stuff, but when I was younger, but I don't know if I fully believed in me, like, in myself. Like, it was always like, oh, like, I've got all these cool ideas, but I don't know if everyone else will like them.
Yeah.
And now it's weird because all those ideas, people traveling from overseas to come and be there and have a seat at your show, So sometimes I think about back then, like, I had all that in my head, but I don't think I fully believed that I could actually do what I'm doing now, So, yeah, man, belief takes you a long way.
Bro, imagine if you didn't, you know what I mean? Take that leap of faith. You know what I mean? Like when you had that, that thought and, like, actually doing something with it.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of people get to that place and get scared and run backwards, you know what I mean? And not knowing what's ahead, what can be ahead if they pursue it. So, like...
Well, can be us right now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, for the last however many years that we've been wanting to do it and then get to it, chicken out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's literally just, for me, it's, just getting off the fence and doing it, you know, like I always have these thoughts of like how great this idea could be, but it's then me actually starting it, you know, which I mean, that's why you need good people around you, because they're the ones that will support you and like, you know, Mono hears my dumb ideas all the time, you know, like, but I always think everything that I do, it's always been like, I dream about it all the time. Like I'll dream about something and then I'll have to write about it like when I wake up, otherwise I'll forget it, you know, and then it'll be like, oh man, you know, I'll say to someone, oh, what about this, so I think it's just having the right people around you that support what you do or your ideas that you have, or that'll be straight up with you and be like, oh, I don't know if that's the right thing to do, you know. But yeah, having the right support team, you know, around you always helps. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's mad. Transitioning from the runway, tell us what you got going on at the moment. So you got well-being with Jannike.
Yeah.
How's that different? So, you know, you got a team in the runway where you're sort of at the back, you know, you said you're organizing things, but now you've put your face to that brand.
Yeah.
As to, you know.
Yeah.
So tell us about well-being with Jannike.
Yeah.
And what you got going on there.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because, yeah, with the show, it's like I've always been behind the scenes, you know. For many years, I actually never came out. Like I always stayed back of house just because I needed to make sure everything was running on time, and then once my publicist came on, she's like, you know, you got to come out to the front because people don't know who runs the show. Like they see everything you put online, they see this massive event, but they never see who actually runs this, you know. And I remember the first year she made me come out and I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can, you know, I was sitting there watching the show, but in my mind it's like, okay, is the next designer ready? Is it, you know, like all that type of stuff. So I've never been the person that puts my face first, you know. So stepping into this, like well-being with Jannike Seiuli, like that's just, I think because throughout COVID, I was going through my own things. And I was working with a group of women throughout the lockdown that needed help, you know, like, or we all needed help, you know. And then I realized that, like, after that, I really wanted I really wanted to help others, you know. So after the lockdown, I put this together. And then it was like, okay, I want to help other women that might be facing their own challenges. And started doing workshops and things like that and events. So events were already a part of it. So Women with Vision is one of the events that I do with within this. So, but that's an event I've been doing since 2016, where we have a panel of women that are working in different fields, come and share their story of how they were inspired to work in that field. So that's just something. That's what I'm working on at the moment. So that's what I'm doing now. Yeah.
That's so good. That is so good. What are you most proud of? Like throughout this whole journey and where you've come from and where you're going to, like at this point in your, I guess, your story, like what are you most proud of?
I think actually doing what I love, like, and not being scared about that. And I think that's why it's pushed me to work with women and things like that, because then we all have similar stories, going through similar challenges and things like that. So, but choosing to do what I love and believing in myself has really helped me in my own journey, you know, because there's been many times where self-doubt has just stepped in and all that type of stuff. So, but now I feel confident in what I'm doing and how I can help others in a different way. So obviously with the show, I feel like I've been able to help designers or our people within that area. But now I'm able to work closely with women and help them in some way. So, and most of them, like, I don't know all their stories, but like we all come together and there's times where we're able to share and be able to just help one another. Because I'm not saying that I don't go through my own trials. Like, I feel like I run these events and workshops with the women, and I really benefit from it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it helps me too.
Yeah.
So
They're
yeah.
learning, you're learning as well.
yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah, that's right.
gaining strength, like
Yeah.
both ways.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So I'm enjoying that. It's been really cool. So I've been doing that since I finished up with the runway, and I'm enjoying that. Filling
That's-
my cup.
Yeah, that's mad.
Yeah.
That's so cool. But yeah, we won't keep you too much longer. But
Good.
yeah, we just want to give you your flowers. You know, I feel like we don't do that enough in today's day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story. Obviously,
Thank
it's it's
That's
inspiring.
amazing.
Obviously you're a trailblazer for starting that show.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you for coming on. We'll let you take us out.
But before, to all aspiring, I guess, like people that are coming up, and you got any advice that you like to give people, like that are, I guess, in whatever space they're in, you know what I mean? Like, and what you went through and the doubts and stuff that was going through your mind and your head, like to what you have come to now. Like, have you got any words that you want to, I guess, give them?
Yeah. I mean, my favorite quote is, if you can dream it, you can do it. So I think that, and when I fully understood that and, lived by it, then it was like, man, when I see other people that don't know their full potential and I can see it, it's just like, if I can help them take that step towards their own goals, then, I'll be happy to do that. So you can dream it, you can do it.
If you can dream it, you can do it. You heard it from the one and only.
It's beautiful.
We're playing this song, man. It's so sad.
I know, it makes me want to cry every time I hear it.
No, thank you, boys. I appreciate it.
We thank you. We thank you
you.
so much for taking the time
Where can
out
we
to-
find you? Where can we find you on social
Yeah.
media?
Yeah, so you can follow my Wellbeing with Jannike Seiuli. That's where I am at the moment. Anything to do with the runway, then I'm still at Pacific Runway. So I'm proud of what I was able to do and how I've been able to help other people. So yeah,
Amazing.
Amazing.
no, thank you.
Would there be a return of the Mac when it comes down to this Pacific Runway?
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mona behind the cameras.
Thank you, Mona.
Thanks, babe.
This is the Back of the Class podcast.
Hey.
Thank you, Jannike, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Peace.
Deuce.
You made a way.